And you can't
And
tell me.
that's why Richard was so attached to Trix.
Yes. Yes. And I almost wish, there's a little part of me that wishes that we had gotten a chance to, I completely forgot what I was trying to say because I had a point in my mind
And it just left.
and it just completely left my mind. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. That we had more of a chance to have Tricks maybe on the show and be in Lorelai's corner because here's my issue sometimes with these kind of shows. Not everybody can be an only child.
Truth.
But then I also feel like maybe in prominent families they did limit it to one. They were like, okay, we're not gonna have three and four. We got this one. I'm good. I did what I needed to do. They were on their
Well,
missing
because
parent.
wealthy women had more opportunities to get access to birth control,
Exactly.
legally or not.
Yep. Exactly. But it also makes me feel like I kind of would have liked to have Lorelai have a chance to have more people in her corner that were related to her. Because
Yeah,
sometimes they all feel like they're on their own little island because there's one representative of each generation. And then, Gigi is so young, she doesn't really count in having a relationship with Rory because she's
because she's not old enough to be considered like a sentient character yet.
exactly. And so it makes me wish that Trix or a cousin or somebody, I don't think they needed to be a
Right.
regular,
And you
they
see
didn't need
some
to kind
brief
of.
moments with like other family members, but it's very, very brief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like with was it on Richard's side that they had the cousin that liked to steal the glassware?
I don't remember.
It was a very brief instance. I think she showed up for a wedding. She showed up for when they renewed their vows, her and Richard.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I think she was a Gilmore, yes. But you know what? That actually makes me realize we never really saw anybody from Emily's side. So that makes me
No.
wonder if like maybe Emily. What if Emily?
Ooh.
Let me hush, because what if Emily was?
Well, because remember, Trix didn't want Emily in the family at all.
Mm-hmm.
At
You want to
all.
pin
That
her up?
letter,
You
and
want
that
to
was the
pin
one
her
time I
up?
was ever like purely team Emily. I was like, you fuck Trix. You show that woman. Y'all were married for 40 years. Hell yeah. No, I was, oh, I like, and Lorelai was too. She was like, this is atrocious.
Yeah, yeah.
She hate for a very brief moment. She was like, I get it. I get
Mm-hmm.
it now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wonder if Emily's family was separated for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because funnily enough, I don't know a whole lot of my mother's family either.
Interesting. Very
Hmm.
Then you know what? That might actually add a whole other layer to why she's so protective over Lorelai. Because Lorelai might
Uh-huh.
be her only family. And she's looking at her like, I'm gonna protect you in a way I was never protected, or whatever else.
Absolutely.
And that adds, if that is the case, hypothetically, it would also make it a little bit more sad that she couldn't grasp why Lorelai would want to leave. But it would also make sense that she's like, I'm providing this stable environment for you,
Hmm.
and you want to
Hmm.
leave. Like there's so many conflicting things that
Like
could
it
be.
could have been so much worse.
Exactly. Like you have no idea. And that's kind of one of the things of shows that have generational interactions is there are generations who have no idea what happened before they were born. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
unless somebody told Lorelai, she wouldn't know how her parents got together. And it's kind of the same thing with Rory is like Lorelai is filling in the gaps of what happened before she was born, but before Rory was born. But it's like all of those things are going to be from someone else's perspective. You're never going to fully know the story because you weren't there. And so they can leave out what they want to leave out, and you'll just never know. Hmm.
Exactly. And like it goes into this point I've made to some people, like friends of mine through the ages that I don't think I've voiced it ever like on social media. I think Gilmore Girls was intended to be a nighttime Days of Our Lives.
I could see that. I could absolutely see that. Especially with especially with Kirk. But no, especially with like Rory and the way okay, listen.
And her relationships.
Oh God. Because the way that that child, and I say child because she was a child at that point, and so that I choose to say that so I can remember that. The way that child played in Dean's face, listen, I get it.
Oh,
I understand fully why we wanted to go to Jess. I get it. I was that age. I fully understand. Because Jess was a heartthrob. And Dean was the country
mm,
boy next
he
door
was
who just
pretty.
with the boy with he had whatever. But the way that
Dean
that
was
girl
where my crush on Jared Padalecki started. Supernatural was where it fleshed itself out.
see, I was always I can't remember Jess's real name. I cannot remember that man's real name to save my life. I was always a him fan. He was always mine. That was where there was something about like just everything. Just everything. I don't know. It was just everything. Because Jared Padalecki always seemed like
Oh,
he
you
was
were okay. What is his name?
it's
See,
a
you mention it,
Milo.
and now the name leaves me.
It's a Milo some
No, you're thinking of Misha Collins. He played the angel.
no his name no oh God wait okay
Oh,
just
you're talking about Jesse. He was played by
Milo okay
Milo something. I can't remember his
I can't
last
remember
name
his
off the top of
last
my
name.
head, but he was played by a guy named Milo, and he is also a fantastic actor. My
He
God.
is
And
he
he is
is
so pretty.
Milo. Uh-oh.
Because I always shipped Rory with Jesse more than I ever did with Dean. Because Jared Padalecki was pretty, but they just didn't fit.
They didn't. They were both. I'm gonna use this word very specifically, even though they're both children. They were both boring. They were both very. At that point in her
Yes.
life, Rory was very boring, and I think she kind of needed Dean to ease her into the life of having a boyfriend, things like that. So from that perspective, love that for her. Um,
Yes.
but Dean was very boring. Even as an adult, Dean was very boring. Nothing changed. He just got older. Jess always seemed like, but you know for yourself, I'm a bird. And so the bad boy, that's kind of all I needed. I didn't need anything.
My profile picture is enough.
But then he was so smart. Exactly. The profile picture, I've had to have my head turned because I will start commenting on that. And I just, this isn't the time nor the place for it. It's not. Um,
We'll have to have a whole separate podcast for that.
we really will. Like you're joking, but I really do need to talk about Side of Affection. We do need to talk about that because
It's so good.
I'm anyway.
It's so
Um,
good.
it is so good, but I was always very much a Jess fan because like I love a good bad boy, love a bad boy with a brain. The one with the heart of gold. He's just from a
Oh
total.
my God. He can get down and play craps in the street, but he can also read me Faulkner. Yes, please.
He's the one. He can do really good in school. He just doesn't because he doesn't want to apply himself. Like I was very much with
Hmm.
Rory. Girl, we can fix him. Let's just work hard. And we can fix him. We can make him into what we need him to be. But that's what I kind of always loved about Jess was that he had those layers to him.
Oh,
And he
absolutely. And I really feel like Jess was a strong case for right guy, wrong time.
absolutely 100%. 100%. 100%. And Dean just always missed the mark by just a little bit. But that does not mean and I told Leia, because Leia loves Gilmore Girls too. I told Leia that I would defend Dean, but I'm not going to because I don't want to, and I don't think that he needs me to defend him.
He
I-
doesn't. He can stand up for himself. He's a really well fleshed out character for who he is. And
absolutely.
he is a wonderful man. He just is. He
He
is
is.
a wonderful man. He just wasn't the man for Rory.
No, God, no, no. And the thing is, like, okay, okay. As it pertains to a man, I would go for Jess. but for Rory, Logan was always it for me. Of everyone was on the show,
Yeah,
Logan was always it because he
because
just
Logan fit that niche level of affluence
yes,
that I don't think Jess would ever understand.
yes, and he matched Rory's freak, you know,
He
and
did.
like I think, but I think like
Who else would she steal a boat with?
exactly, and I think that Jess could keep up with her in the way she spoke, in the way, but I think in a much more friendly manner, where I feel like
They
Logan
would have been
had more.
Harper Lee and Simon Capote.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Logan always had more romantic patience with her. Like, and he,
Truman Capote, not Simon. Sorry, I realized I said Simon. I was like, that's not that man's name.
I knew who you meant. I was just gonna move on past it. I said, I know who my girl means. I know. But no, Logan to me, and maybe if I go back and rewatch it, I'll have a different opinion. But Logan always seemed, like you said, he understands that affluent kind of like nature to her. But I always felt like he could keep up with the person that Rory was and be patient with her.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
I don't think Rory is necessarily a lot, but I think when you look at Lorelai and Rory, you do have to have a level of okay to be with them because the way Dean was just in amazement when he would be with them, he'd just be like, "Oh my God, y'all eat this? Y'all watch these movies? Y'all do this? Y'all do that?"
Mm-hmm.
It was like everything was just so overwhelming for him. And then
Right.
Jess was I think Jess could hang, but there was just always something about Logan. He just knew. He just got it.
He fit the puzzle piece. And I
Mhm.
think it comes down to Dean had all of the stability she craved from having a very at that point non-traditional lifestyle,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Jesse could hang with the non-tradition and gave her that sense of adventure, but he didn't understand the niche
Yeah.
of her life because of, the environments they came from.
Mhm.
But as well, he had no perspective on how to put this, the double life aspect of it, right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
you have to imagine that as a child, that would be a weird dichotomy to grow up with of like, okay, we're normal here. And then you go to this huge estate,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
there are these people living this crazy life,
Yep.
but that's normal for you. That's Friday night.
Yep. Exactly. Like literally every Friday you go to a mansion. There's no
And
way.
exactly. And that's where Jesse crashes out. He's like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know the decorum. I don't know what, they're willing to take. And I cannot be myself here. And I've never not been able to be myself.
Mhm.
It has always just been me. Right.
Mhm.
And then you get Logan,
Yep.
who has all of that, and he's like, oh yeah, I can fake being a good dude in front of in front of your grandma. I know exactly what they need because I grew up with that too,
Yeah, exactly.
and I have the same level of flippance for it that you do because I recognize it's ridiculous, it's
Mhm.
stupid,
And you
but
know,
I enjoy the perks.
but you want to know what's so interesting about their relationship though, is that kind of when it comes to the nitty gritty of it, Rory always feels like she's the one who falls behind in their relationship in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the whole episode, the episode when she's like, "I'm a Gilmore. My grandparents or my family came over here on the Mayflower," and it's like he's looking at her like, "Yeah, okay, baby, let's go." Because even though we've always seen the Gilmores as kind of like this upper echelon, now we see the Huntsbergers, and they're the ones that Emily's trying to keep up with. So it's like
Exactly, they're the old money,
exactly.
and they always know something she doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it also goes back to we didn't learn a whole lot about Emily's family.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm. And
Exactly.
so, and it goes like the crash out Emily has. with the Huntsbergers when she realized that Rory's telling the truth of how they don't want her around
Mm-hmm.
because she's not good enough. And she walks up very calm, very polite to that lady and goes, "Honey, you want to talk about gold diggers? That's the pot calling the kettle black, baby.
That's
I
what
know all the details. This is something you can't one up me on."
that woman. She read that woman to
To
the highest
Phil,
extent possible. My God. She said when you got off that bus and stumbled into whatever bar you found in me.
she's like, "You may think you're better than me, but baby, I know your story.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason you're a Huntsberger is because your man knocked you up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by
Mm-hmm.
the way, I know why you gain weight. It's whenever he's having an affair. We can read it like clockwork."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, ah, get her, get
Mm-hmm.
her.
But you know
But
what?
she couldn't talk like that to the top to the head Huntsberger because he knows too much.
Exactly. And you but you want to know what's interesting when you just said that, you know what it made me think about is there's another woman who didn't play the game the way she did, and now she's in a position where she's telling her granddaughter, you just don't fit. You know,
Hmm.
like it's kind of like, you know, she's looking at Lorelai like, how did you get all of this and you didn't do what I did and I had to sacrifice and whatever else. And now she's looking at, I can't remember that woman, Shauna Huntsberger. I don't know, but she's looking
Her
at,
name's ain't important.
it's not, it's literally not. But she's looking at her and she's like, here's another woman who again did not do things the traditional way, and now she's in this position of power and whatever else. And it's like I could
And
see.
she's pulling the ladder up behind her.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And so it's like you see Emily and she's just surrounded by these women who didn't necessarily do anything
The
to
way they were supposed to.
in the way that they were supposed to. And it's like I can see how incredibly frustrating. And I think that's why she wants to now this is where me and Emily kind of fall to pieces sometimes.
Right? Because, like, I did it
Emily,
right. I did things the right way.
uh-huh.
Why am I not moving?
And Emily uses Rory to get back at Lorelai a lot. And not in
Hmm.
and I used to say not in a malicious way, but it is malicious because the I will never forget when she got when she made up the room for Rory and whatever. And when
Hmm.
she's talking to Lorelai and the smirk on her face, and she's like, "Does it bother you that she has this room here? Does it bother?" And I just always remember that way she looked at Lorelai, like, "Finally, I got you. After all these
Right?
years,
And
I
it
finally get."
goes all the way back to season one,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
When Lorelai's looking at Emily and she goes, "I don't want your internet."
Yes. Yes.
And everything clicks and everything makes sense. And it's like, I get you now.
Uh-huh.
Because in
Uh-huh.
that first moment, you're like, why are you taking the internet? It's free internet.
It's literally free internet. Just take it, use it, do whatever you need to do with it.
And now we get it. It's a
Uh-huh.
weapon.
It's a weapon. Every single thing. Nothing she did for Rory was for Rory. It was to get back at Lorelai. And you know what? Let's just take a moment and kind of talk about what led up to that because that's another one of my favorite scenes is not even really scenes but just moments is when Emily sees the place that Lorelai was raising Rory in the shack in the back. And she sees it and she sees that Lorelai would have rather lived there than with her in a mansion. And she gets so horrified that she literally runs off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you hear about how upset she was when Lorelai left and she couldn't get out of bed for a month and she was just so depressed and you can even see her heart be shattered, you know, when she reads the note. And you realize Emily has held on to all of this stuff for 16 plus years. And
Yeah.
this is her finally being able to get back at Lorelai for leaving. She finally can have that moment of retribution for herself. Look at what I did. Yeah, you left and you
Yep.
took that girl from us, but look at what I did. I brought her
She's
back into
right
the
back
fold.
here.
You can't keep her away from me. And it's one of those moments where like when Emily does that smirk, it sends shivers up my spine because of how hateful it is.
Hmm.
And also you think of how much she must be hurting, but she doesn't know how to express it.
Right. With her
So
own
good
daughter,
with
no
her own
less.
daughter. Yeah. She's never been able to talk to her. She's never been able to figure out what Lorelai wants. And it makes me go back to something that you said, the way people see the quote unquote quirky girl, the neurodivergent girl. And that's how Emily doesn't know how to talk to her.
Hmm.
Emily has no idea because she sees her as the quirky one. Lorelai is always cracking jokes. Lorelai is always doing this. That's how
She takes
Lorelai does.
nothing
She takes
serious.
nothing serious. And she doesn't know how to talk to Lorelai. And instead of
Mm-mm.
taking time to get to know her as a person, she gets to know her as a mother should a daughter. And there's that generic aspect that always keeps them from having a personal relationship.
Oh, yeah. And I think the gap of their time together definitely has a large factor to play in that because she doesn't get to see not Emily, Lorelai grow from 16 to 32.
Yes. Yes. Because, see, I always
So,
wondered how involved she was during that time. I mean, there was at least a little bit of time there where Lorelai had to. I mean, she was only 16, so for a little piece of time there, she had to have called him for something, you know.
well, in this is kind of where I have to piece things together
Yeah.
because you go back to season one and they're talking about it, and they don't have caller ID, but she just kind of has a spidey sense on where
Mm-hmm.
when her mom's calling and they ignore the phone calls. It gives me very much of like, yeah, they're around, but we don't want them there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think they kind of alluded to, or maybe said outright. I can't remember.
Because I don't
Um,
think Lorelai ever, except for like the first few years of little Rory's life, kept them from her. Because Emily mentions at one point we didn't get to see her first steps and stuff like that.
yes, because
So
she was still a baby when Lorelai left. But this is
yeah,
what I couldn't remember if they outright said. But Lorelai would take Rory to their house for like holidays and stuff, right? Or did I make that?
yes. Well, they would meet, they had the big family Christmas that they would show up to. And for some reason, I've always envisioned the age is like 6. I don't know why, of when that started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you'll remember that when they have the episodes about birthday parties, and Lorelai throws the best birthday parties.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
figured that out with Rory when she was on her own and she had no access
Yeah.
to the safety net because she and her mother weren't talking. So I imagine sometime probably in toddlerdom, because that's typically like when parents struggle the most with their children because they can communicate just enough to get, the basics out, but they can't communicate.
Yeah.
Of when she probably had to break down and call her mom and be like, I'm lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm.
imagine that's probably how that got started.
Yeah. 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 Cause and then too that kind of time where if you start lavishing Rory with gifts, that's gonna kind of go to her head. And I do like that we always see Rory with books. Like, yes, she watches TV and movies and stuff, but she's always reading. And I do feel like, even though we don't really see Lorelai reading like that, I do feel like she kind of took that from them, and she realized like, oh, my daughter is smart. Let me give her a book.
Right.
Let's do this. And then too, that's kind of easy maintenance for her because it's like, okay, if she's reading this book, then I can go do what I'm finna go do, and then she's not even gonna realize I'm not here. you know?
Right. Or at the very least, be like, I can cook. I can, do the laundry, or, I can do the things that need to get done.
Yes, yes,
And when
absolutely.
she was living in the hotel, right, I can plot my kid on this couch, give her a book, and I can go clean these rooms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at the
Mm,
same time, it's still a very healthy interaction because you're expanding your child's mind, you're feeding what they're interested in, and you're showing them that it's safe to be interested in things.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I do love that we actually see that Lorelai does have a support system of some kind. Even though it may not be her parents, she does have people that are helping
She
her
has a
with.
very beautiful found family.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It makes it more understandable how she was able to take care of Rory while she's working and whatever else. And that's one thing I'll always give Lorelai. She does work very hard. Like whatever else anyone can say about her, she's always working hard.
She was going to give her baby the best life possible, no matter what it took. And that
Mm,
includes swallowing her pride and going back into a home she never felt safe in.
yes.
And like, that is such a ballsy, wonderful, badass move to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to know, like, because that's such a huge moment. Like, yeah, we can get into the whole discussion about, how she has access to that money, where your normal average person won't, whatever. We can get into that, but
It doesn't
it
change the
doesn't
hurt.
change how much she had to like, because you even watch her when she's getting ready to knock on the door, just be like, oh God, what am I about to do? Like
She
she
has to
literally,
prep herself.
she does. And she almost seems like she's making a deal with the devil. I mean, if we're being honest, that's kind of what it.
And that's probably what it felt like.
And but that's kind of how it came off, because as soon as Richard is like, "I get the check," here comes Emily. I have conditions, and Emily and Lorelai's just like so close, because she was right there. It was almost just a done deal where she could just do what she needed to do. But again, Emily uses Rory as a way to Lorelai, like.
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
that was kind of where I understood also that like Emily in Richard's place would have been so successful.
Oh, absolutely, because she's cutthroat.
She's so cutthroat.
Hmm.
And it's scary, especially as like a mother and you see that interaction, especially in interpersonal stuff. But if you put that in a business situation,
Oh, absolutely. She.
billionaire.
Mm, absolutely. And then too, not to go back to my girl, not to go back to Tricks, but I wonder how I feel like of course Emily was naturally talented, but I wonder how much of like that sense of what an adult is, an adult woman in this world of richness and extravagance and whatever else, how much of that she learned from Tricks. Like just
You
watching the
know?
way Tricks handled herself, and because Tricks was
Especially
very,
growing up young, married,
uh-huh.
having
Not,
children young, because they got married pretty fresh.
yeah.
Like, I think they got married in the middle of her going to college.
Yes. Yes. And you see, like, Trix probably would have been her only real consistent, consistent
Example of a grown
example
woman.
of a grown woman in this rich world, in this world of money and how to navigate it and whatever else. And of course, she learns from everyone around her in some capacity. But Trix was kind of like that model. And you can see when Emily is sitting there and she's got that little smirk and she's like, "I have my conditions." That's something that Trix would do. That's the way Trix
Absolutely.
would handle herself. That's the way that she conducts business.
Oh, absolutely. And there's especially because, like, we mentioned her age getting married, like, there was a point in Emily's life where she was desperate for Trix's approval.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting because Lorelai responds to Trix and Emily completely different, even though they do some of the same stuff. So Trix is very much in her business. Trix is very much always like, Lorelai, what about this? Lorelai, it's very uniform in the way she speaks to her, but she always knows when to insert that little joke in there, and she knows when to make it fun, and she knows it's gonna stop at a certain point. Where when Emily does it, Emily doesn't know when to stop. She doesn't know what
Yeah,
the stopping point is, and I think that that's the big reason. Maybe Emily thinks, okay, well, Trix does this. She has fun with her. Why doesn't she have fun with me? Why can't I be the person that she smiles with? But Trix also knows. Let me tell you something. When Rory said, "Grandma, this is delicious," and Trix said, "Good job, young lady," we almost all believed that.
I know.
The way that she read Emily without ever directly talking to her was just so perfect. And it's like you see Lorelai. all in that. Like that is so Lorelai. And so you see her coming from these very sarcastic women. You see her coming from Richard, and it's like no wonder Lorelai is who she is.
She
My
is.
God.
This was the environment she was raised in.
Mm-hmm.
And she shares those genetics. And once again, we don't see a whole lot of Emily's family, so you don't get a whole lot of Emily's influence
Mm-hmm.
because all you ever around is the Gilmores.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's almost like Emily doesn't have any sort of identity outside of Richard.
Mm-mm. And that's such a common, I don't want to say problem because that boils it down to something really simple. Situation, I guess would be the word to put it, for women of her time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I imagine she's probably in that boomer one period. My mother was born in 1953. Her mother was born in 22. And I see so much of the interactions between me and my mother and her and my grandmother
Mm-hmm.
before my grandmother had like went too far down the route of dementia, and like the little bit of information I got from my father about her and my her mother's relationship, because my mother never talked about it
Mm-hmm.
for reasons I and which I fully understand now because of the discussion me and my father had
Yeah.
um in Trix and Lorelai and Emily.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And so I think because of that, I have a lot of empathy for their situation. I think I kind of read a little too much into it sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but it fits that model so well that I can kind of make some of those inferences and kind of feel comfortable making them. And so when it comes to Trix and Lorelai, I think a lot of it comes down to that generational gap because you got to think about it. The greatest generation to baby boomers
Mm-hmm.
were very different lives.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Baby boomers, in comparison to the greatest generation, had it way easier
Mm-hmm.
on a physical and emotional and all of this level. So to them, you're like, you ain't had to do shit kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And it's this if I suffered, so should you. And boomers took that a little, they took that to their furthering and, kind of what they went through with Gen X. And you see it move through the line. And I think millennials on are trying to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really good model to view them from because they're right in that little sweet spot.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. 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 And that's what I love so much about shows with generations to them versus just like we're watching this person live their life. I love generational things because you really get a chance to see like who this person is, how they got to where they are, how they became who they are. And
And just how isolated things can be, especially for Emily.
mm-hmm,
If I
and
was in Emily's situation, I don't know that I would have been any different.
I can't say I would. I can't, especially when you realize like Emily doesn't have real friends. Like Emily has people around her that she considers her associates, things like that. But
Right?
they,
Her
they
peers.
her peers, they all know that it's just smoke and mirrors. They know it's fake. They know that they're gonna get behind each other's, backs and laugh.
Right? And they all have a motive. It's like the American version of royal court.
Exactly. Exactly. And they all know it. It's not like it's some secret to whatever. And that's why
Right?
when you get someone like the
Why else would
husband.
we have called the Kennedys Camelot?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why when you get someone like Logan's mama that comes in and she shakes it up, it's like, yeah, she's not going to be young and 23 forever, but look at how she came in and is able to wield all this power because of the last name that she married into.
Mm-hmm. And what she was willing to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
gave everything. She gave it all up, all of her independence, all of her ability to make decisions about the large picture of her life to be a Huntsberger
Hmm.
because she knew what it would give her children.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's what she
Wait,
wanted.
Logan
She didn't
had
care about
siblings.
her.
Logan had
He
siblings.
did. He did. He had a few siblings.
That's very interesting. Hmm.
They had, I want to say, 3 or 4 children.
Hmm. Because Christopher didn't have any siblings, did he? That we know of. Well, never mind. We don't know that. I don't know. I don't even think we would have gone into something like Christopher's life. But the reason it's so interesting is just to see the difference between someone like them having multiple children than someone like the Gilmores and they have like one child each. It's interesting.
Hmm
It's
I
very
think it comes down to just personal decisions.
I think so.
I
I
think
think so.
part of it was with the Huntsbergers, it was we will make them stand in line
Mm-hmm.
through
Mm-hmm.
any means necessary. Whereas with the Gilmores, they had their strictness and it was definitely strict,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But they knew with Lorelai it was going to be difficult, and I don't think they knew they could not juggle Lorelai and another child, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it also
Can you
came down to the
imagine?
fact,
Can you imagine?
oh my God, it would definitely be a glass child situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would have been even worse, and they knew that, and they chose not to, and they had the opportunity to choose not to.
Yeah, ooh, that's true. That's true.
I and that's another thing with Mrs. Huntsberger. I don't know that she had the option.
Oh, probably not. I would venture to say not. Because
I
he
wonder
got
how many of those children were born consensually.
exactly. Because I would
There's
imagine.
a lot of, and I think we said Shauna. I don't know if that's her real name. Let's go with it. I don't know
Um,
how much of Shauna's life was her choice,
exactly. As soon as she stepped off that bus, whatever she, whatever she was doing.
right? And I think she had some comprehension then that she was signing her life away, but there's no comprehension you can have for just how much you're giving away until you're in that. It's like joining a cult.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's why, like, when I look at marriage and when I look at having kids, I seriously look at who I'm with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And who I'm giving that to, because that's still a possibility.
Right. Right.
And not to say much, but if me and Jack, and when me and Jack marry, I'm marrying up.
Right.
I'll fully admit that I'm marrying up. I didn't mean to. He was just the man I fell for and will
Mm-hmm.
build a life with, and we have this beautiful relationship.
Right.
Doesn't change the facts. Um, and I saw that family and
Mm-hmm.
I saw the interactions and I looked at that and I was like, I need to know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've weighed that out for years while me and him are together and we live, we've had our life and our challenges together. And I've determined that's worth it,
Right.
right? Because we love each other and I know Jack and I know his heart. If he were another man, I don't know that I would have made that same decision.
Mm. I love that insight. I love that. Because I don't think about stuff like that. See, for me, I'll be honest with you, I've kind of decided I'll probably never be able to get married. Not just because of legal stuff, but just because, it doesn't seem like that's really in the cards for me. If it is, then great.
Before me and Jack got married, I was kind of in the same boat.
That's interesting.
But given me and Jack have known each other since we were 12 years old,
Right, 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 right.
I have a lot of shared history with him. So that went into that decision as the years of our relationship went on, of me knowing him that long and knowing who he is.
Hmm.
If we hadn't known each other that longer time for me to make that decision that I was comfortable and I loved him and that we were going to have a successful relationship.
Right, right. And it's good y'all had that opportunity to be like, I think this will work work out. I think this is gonna go good.
Yeah, of sitting there going, this works.
hmm 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 And see, that's where my poor Lorelai, bless her heart, relationships are not her strong suit. You know, that's
They
not
weren't.
yeah. Because I think that's why she even gets so scared. In not to bring up Year in the Life again, but I think that's why she's so scared to really fully commit to Luke in that way. It's just because
Hmm.
even after all that time and being so, what? When you said something earlier, and it's been making me think about how when we get the show, when we get A Year in the Life, they're still essentially the same characters. They've just aged now because they have to, but they're still the same characters. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about that because it is so true, and I don't know how fair it is to them.
I
Like
know.
we're coming
Because
back
it
like
was it was a really good series. I enjoyed it, but I
hmm
wanted to like I think because you and we have experience writing and we want to see that growth and we want to see, we don't have the fandom view
hmm
of it of we want the same people. We want the people we attach to.
hmm
But I feel like the characters themselves were a lost opportunity.
Yes, I
And
do
the thing
too.
about it is, A Year in the Life was going to be a short series, no matter how they did it. They knew that it was going to be a one and done. You
hmm
had the opportunity to throw the balls to the walls and do it how you wanted to do it because you wanted to.
Yes.
Why not?
hmm hmm Cause it just does such a disservice to them to come back, and it's like they've just been standing still in time, and it's like, oh,
They're in Stars Hollow, like
uh-huh.
NPCs doing the dance.
Uh-huh. Like we're just supposed to be like, when Lorelai tells Emily, Rory's 32, mom. She's not da 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 da. And I just always found that line so annoying. And now I know why. Like listening to you say, like now I fully understand why that annoys me so bad. It's because they're still talking about her like she's 18-year-old Rory. Like
And
mom,
she's not.
she's just a kid. Of course she's gonna, but now it's from the perspective of like I can't tell her what to do, mom. She's 32, and it's like, okay.
Right? And that line would have fit so much better if we got to see a 32-year-old Rory. And on the flip side of that coin, it was almost fun to
hmm
see Rory have fun,
Yeah, yeah.
to have her get to have that opportunity because Rory kind of, for various reasons, took that away from herself growing up. And I can identify with that of finding adolescence later in life because of the responsibilities you had at an early age. So
Mm-hmm.
when you hit that point that you're on your own and you realize, oh shit, I am the adult in this situation. I can do almost whatever I want. You go wild.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I see that. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's just me.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, it's annoying. I imagine seeing my life from the outside perspective. Oh my God, I would have been so annoyed with myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed it
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't get to have it when I should
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And Rory, where Rory doesn't benefit, I think, from not really have being able to grow up in between the end of the show and Year in Life, it comes off as pretentious.
have. It does.
Like if it was someone who had just freshly graduated from Yale and she was saying like, I'm at some startup trying to get a job here, and this is beneath me. I could kind of see it a little bit better because you're fresh in the world. You have this brand new perspective and whatever. So I could kind of see it from that route. But having her be 32 and she's done all of these things and gone here and done this, and now she's here, and it just makes her feel. It comes off as
Gwyneth Paltrow.
yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. I think that's pretty much
It
the
comes off as goop.
yeah. I think that's pretty much the only way we can
It
describe
was just like you were talking about it and the puzzles fit together. And I was like, oh my God.
it. She's nepotism run wild, kind of.
A little bit. And
I say
I
run wild.
feel
I don't
like
mean run wild. What I mean is she's nepotism, I think, unchecked. I'm not gonna say run wild. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say unchecked because I don't think that Rory is. I don't care for Rory. I'll say that. But now that we're talking about this, I kind of am changing my perspective on it. I still don't necessarily care for her, but I can see now being so young and sheltered and whatever else, and then all of a sudden this world of balls and not balls, but well, I mean, yeah, balls. Like the
Figuratively and
debutante.
literally.
Yeah, exactly. The debutante balls and things like that. I could absolutely see how that would blow her mind and have her just, and then, like you said, about that time, my girl starts to, feel her oats. And and now she's just got this whole new regular world open up to her, and I get it. I just I get it, I guess.
It's annoying, but it makes
Yeah,
sense.
but it makes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and there's a certain amount of that like, okay, there's some realism there,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it doesn't do Rory justice because there's also a standard that Rory held herself to, even like not even just as a child who had to, kind of step in and be that parent sometimes because she did.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it also comes down to the fact that Rory always had her eye on the prize. She was going to succeed, not because anybody else wanted her to, but because she wanted to. And she wanted to do this and she wanted to have this life. And not necessarily in the structure that she envisioned it, but she was going to achieve something akin to it. And then they had her just throw it away. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah. Because it really almost
Her lifeblood was journalism. And coming from someone like I went a roundabout way of achieving my dreams, but my life did always kind of revolve around medicine to a certain degree, and I always had a passion for it, and I came back to it, and it refreshed that passion in me, and I will always want to be a writer, and I will always want to be a teacher. But I think it that does take a sideline to my passion for medicine.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so coming from someone who had that roundabout journey and came back to it, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I almost wonder if Rory got overwhelmed that she had access to so much and was almost
Hmm.
like if her brain was kind of like, girl, we really don't have to focus on this because we can kind of do anything we want.
Right? Is this really our dream? Let's see.
Because
Which would,
she has the
as a,
room to explore that in a way that your average person doesn't. Like,
exactly, because if she fails, she always has, or to a certain degree,
uh-huh.
almost always has that opportunity to start again. So why
Mm-hmm.
not?
Because even before the money and stuff comes from Emily, I mean, Emily and Richard, eh, you can kind of tell that she's gonna be smart enough to get a scholarship somewhere. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he's gonna
It
be,
might not be a full ride,
yeah, but she'll have
but it
the
would be
money.
something.
Mm-hmm. You don't
And
ever, sorry.
Lorelai was fairly successful in her own right to the point that she made enough that Yale wouldn't give her a full ride.
Exactly. Exactly.
So they had some level of security, and that's amazing for someone to do on their own. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, hell yeah, Lorelai.
Mm-hmm.
But it also kind of gives you a better picture of the life that Rory had after a certain point. Because they didn't start out with that by any means. They worked their way up, but there was a point at some point, I would say between middle school and high school,
Mm-hmm.
because if we're following the trajectory of any business career, that would kind of be where my brain would put it.
Yeah.
They got to be fairly comfortable in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not wealthy by any means, but fairly comfortable.
Exactly. Exactly. And I do like the fact that Lorelai knows, if we're gonna increase these chances, she probably should go to Chilton. That's gonna look better on her record than Stars Hollow High School, you know.
Exactly. And she was like, we're going to set you up to have the best possibilities out there. And Lorelai had the benefit of knowing that from her own life.
Yeah,
She knew the
exactly.
setup.
Hmm.
She might not have had the follow through that Rory had, but Rory was able to balance it out. And that's where I get kind of like the point of Rory was the second parent.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it always makes me wonder too though. Lorelai always seemed very smart. And I just feel like sometimes she gets the raw end of the deal where she gets portrayed as she just is lazy. She's just lazy.
She's
If she
not,
really would apply herself, that she would could have been something. When I think she works very hard, and we see how smart she is. And
right?
I mean, I could honestly see her being just as smart as Rory, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just a different kind of smart.
Mm-hmm.
And
She's got
so,
street smarts.
exactly, there's always that saying of like really intelligent people don't have any common sense, but a lot of people with common sense could very easily be just as intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're not super intelligent, you got a lot of street smarts kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and to a certain degree, that can be very true. With Lorelai, I feel like because I had this experience growing up, it being very, Lorelai-esque, I guess is the way to put it, on that scale of neurodivergence,
Mhm.
that you have to adapt to your brain and the world's not going to adapt to yours.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of our time working twice as hard to achieve half as much
Mm-hmm.
because our brains don't work on real world time.
Yeah.
They just don't.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and you see that especially with when she's pursuing community college and she's getting her degree right before she opens up the inn. She gets that degree, but
Mm,
she had to be able to do it the way she needed to. And community
mm.
college gave her that opportunity. She couldn't have done that at Yale.
That is true. That is so true. That is so true. Because they have such a rigid way of doing things. She couldn't have found herself there.
Right? It was
And
made
Emily
for the
never
neurotypical
would have
mind.
let her go to like the local public college. Like that never would have happened.
She would not have succeeded the same way.
No.
She is incredibly intelligent and she is incredibly street smart, but she had to learn how she functioned first.
Yes.
And once she did, there was no stopping her.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that took time.
It did. It did.
And I love that they showed that she took that time.
I will say that it always brings a tear to my eye at how proud she was to see Emily and Richard be proud of her at her
Oh,
graduation.
I know. Oh,
That
I cry
always.
every time.
Hmm. It just does something to me every single time. And when she says, "Thank you, Daddy," it just does something to my heart because
I
she
know because
just sounded
you
like a little
saw
girl.
something heal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just, oh, that hurt. Oh, that makes my heart happy every time because you don't get, as an adult, a lot of opportunities to truly heal something that hurt.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And she got a
Especially,
chance to be that little girl again and finally make them proud and walk across the stage. Because when you realize that she didn't get her, high school diploma right then, it's like, oh, Lorelai really deviated from, from what
from
they
everything.
expected. And just seeing her have that moment and, it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
No, there's, and I love Richard and watching how he grows with it because you can see, especially with Richard in like his blow up moments, right?
Hmm.
How hurt he is because he saw so much potential in
Yes.
Lorelai.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, there's some rage there that she deviated from the norm, but that's not the problem.
Hmm. Mm,
It's that he didn't get to see her achieve everything she was so capable of.
yes.
it's such a different perspective from Emily because yeah, Emily knew that she was capable of these things because she was going to make her capable.
Exactly.
He saw Lorelai for who she was,
Exactly. He
and
just
he just couldn't understand
how she could throw it away. It's like
like that.
I love the moment when he defends her. And then she goes in and she tells him thank you. And he just blows up. And you can tell how taken aback she is. Because I feel like she probably never even heard Richard scream before. You know? And like she looks almost terrified. Not like he's gonna hit her or anything, but just like I've
This
never
is something
seen
I hadn't seen before, and maybe she'd seen Richard yell before, but not righteously.
and not at her. I feel like it was never at her in that way. Like he might
Right?
have been mad, he might have, gotten a little angry with her, whatever. But I feel like that was the first time that she could see and hear hurt in his voice over something that she did. And it was just
And
like,
disappointment.
yes, yes. And even the way that he doesn't center himself in it. And he's like, you have no idea what you did to your mother. She couldn't get out of bed for a month. And it's like, he doesn't say it hurt me. And I think because he can't, because he doesn't know how to verbalize that. He doesn't know how to,
Right. And it
you,
comes down to him being a boomer man. He can't accept that he's hurt.
yes, exactly. His only daughter. And there's so much alike. There's so much alike.
So much
And,
alike.
I love Richard and Lorelai. I love Richard and Lorelai.
I
I
love
love
all of their
Richard and Rory.
interactions,
Yes.
especially when Rory graduates and you see him choke up just
Mm-hmm.
a little bit that first time. And like, I bawled. I
Mm-hmm.
bawled like a baby when that happened because, like, my dad was so similar
Yeah.
to Richard in
Yeah.
so many ways. And I've only ever seen my dad, cry like one or two times. It was all in times of pride. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what that was. And like, I don't know. With Richard, there will always be this really soft part in my heart because you
Yeah.
could tell he wanted so much for his daughter and he knew she could do it. She just needed to see it herself.
And
And
when we
he
were
didn't know how to make her see that.
Yes. And that's why you can see how proud he is of her when they're talking about like insurance or they're talking about business, things like that. He's impressed by her.
Because
And
she can hold her own. And he's like, there she is.
that's my girl. Yeah, that's my girl. And they don't ever go the route, and I'm so thankful for this because it wouldn't have fit in the story anyway, but I'm so thankful they never had him say like I wish I'd had a son or I should have had a son to carry on the Gilmore name or something stupid like that.
Because that didn't matter.
It didn't matter. It did not
Not
matter.
to him.
No.
Because, and once again, this goes back to Trix,
Yep. Exactly.
the woman who raised him, succeeding against literally,
Mm-hmm.
all the odds to raise him and raise him so successfully.
Because I feel like
He's
Richard,
like, you're a Gilmore woman. You can do
you can do this.
anything.
Yes. And I feel like he was probably more excited that he had a daughter than if he would have had a son, because he can
He's right,
relate
like,
to that.
oh, she's gonna be a bombshell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you said, having that example in Tricks, he was like, oh yeah, she is gonna take over the world. Not to say he wouldn't have been happy
Richard
to
was
have a daughter.
so for the girlies, and I love it
He
so
was.
much about him
He
because
was.
he wasn't like outspoken about it. He wasn't like women's rights, yeah. Because like when dudes are too for women's rights, it comes off a little dangerous.
Very.
I don't know how else to put that. Little signal comes off. No, he
Mm-hmm.
just was. He just
Uh-huh.
understood,
He
and I
saw
love
her as
that so much about
equal.
him.
He saw her as equal, and I think that's the biggest thing is he it was never like, oh, even though she's a woman she can. Now the only time we kind of see him sort of fall into it a little bit is when they're younger and he's like, they'll get married, he'll work for my firm, whatever the case may be, because he had that traditional way. But once he saw that Lorelai was not gonna do that, he was like, okay.
Okay, you got this. But
Yeah, he's
also at
like,
the same
yeah.
time, like it was just the man with a plan.
Yep,
He was like, okay,
exactly.
things are getting crazy. Let's go. Let's plan this. Let's make sure that we can protect them because they
Hmm.
were children.
Yes, absolutely.
He
Absolutely.
didn't see Lorelai as a woman at that point. He still saw her as a
As a child.
16-year-old girl.
And,
She didn't
mhm.
have she didn't have the skills to be Trix yet.
Exactly. And
He
really,
was going to give her that time
and he knew Richard didn't, but at least he not Richard, Christopher, but at least he could kind of take him under his wing and
and
work
guide
with
him
him a little
along.
bit. So, but that's also so he could provide the best life possible for Lorelai and give her that chance and their baby that chance to do what they
And
need.
that security.
Yep, he was not going to let his daughter just go to anybody. So, I
And
get
they
why he
liked
did it.
Chris.
They
They
did.
genuinely liked Chris. So it was like, of all the situations to be in where this, is the scenario, this is probably the best we could do. So
And
at
it's
least we have that. Let's formulate from there.
and it's so funny when you think about the fact that like Chris is a good option for them, but his parents detested Lauren. It's not funny. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because like his parents detested her. And you think about it, and it's like to us, we're always gonna be on Lorelai's side. And then you kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of like what their life actually was. And you see even more why Lorelai didn't want anything to do with that. Because those people hated that. I mean, that girl, they hated her to the point where even when they met Rory as a teenager and she said she was 16, he was like, huh, very dangerous age for a girl. And I was like, oh yeah, if Richard beats,
Oh,
I'm fine with that.
because they always saw Lorelai as the downfall of Chris.
Absolutely. Poor innocent Christopher, who would never do anything wrong in life, had to be, she seduced him. She had to have.
Right.
Our
And
innocent
it
Christopher
also
would never
like
do
it
this.
shines a light that, she was in her wild child phase. She had a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
so it is the differing ways families view their children.
Mm-hmm.
Because Chris had a reputation too,
Yep, that's true. That is so true.
but they're not
Emily,
going to see that about their kid.
uh-uh. And Emily and Richard, the thing is like they know Lorelai, so they can kind of look past. I think it's almost one Lorelai is one of those people that strikes me as we're just used to her. So
Right.
we just
Lorelai gonna be who Lorelai gonna be.
yeah.
We can't change that.
Yes. Like even if I don't want to acknowledge it, even if I don't want to whatever, it's like that's just Lorelai. And like I could see them kind of being confused for other people to be like going in on her. And then they're looking at like, but that's just what Lorelai does. And then they're like, oh yeah, 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 okay. But I feel like Emily is always acutely aware of how kind of out of pocket Lorelai can be.
Right. And how she's seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you know what, Daisy? I think that we have had an amazing conversation. And
We have.
there's so much more to have. That's what's so funny about it. We didn't even get into like the side characters. We didn't get into really we kind of hit the tip of the iceberg.
Really, there's so much more you can do.
Hmm.
But that's up to you. Do we want to continue this at a later date, do a second part, or do we want to stop it here and then see what happens?
I would say let's come back to it. Let's come
Yeah.
let's pick us another day and come back and just cut up because this
All
is
right.
this is everything.
We have so much fun.
Hmm. It really and it has been fun because I don't get a chance to talk about Gilmore Girls that often. So it really is fun to just kind of like talk.
Go into the tea.
Absolutely, yes. That's what it feels like. It feels like tea. It feels like we kind of got the
It
inside
feels
knowledge.
like you're gossiping about that family down the street.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, we're gonna I think go ahead and wrap up this particular discussion here. Do you want to give your socials to where people can follow you or
Sure. There's not much there right now, but if y'all want to, I am Starchild, spelled Starchylde. It's a little different spelling there. On TikTok, on YouTube, I believe I am yeah, it's Daisy Jane. And Instagram, same thing, Daisy Jane. You can probably find me. You'll recognize the hair. And there's not a whole lot there. I do anime night on Discords for the Power of G group on Thursday nights. That's where you're gonna see me the most often. We
Mm-hmm.
cut up. We have so much fun. I would love to see y'all there. Galen comes in, we cut up. It's a great time.
Baby. My sign of affection. Listen,
Ugh,
that's literally a whole other discussion that shall be had. That absolutely shall be had because I anyway. So yeah, you
there's just
definitely want to
so
be there.
much.
You
Yes.
definitely want to be there for that.
Oh, it's so good. And we have a bunch of other great animes we watch too. Side of Affection's probably our favorite, but
Mhm.
it's so good. And the Discord is in Galen's profile. It is in his link tree and on our website, Power of G Community.
Mhm.
We have such a blast. I would love to see each and every one of y'all there.
We do. It's an amazing time, and what I love the most about it is that we get a chance to experience something that we might not have necessarily gotten a chance because I never would have heard of that. If you hadn't introduced me to it, I never would have heard of it.
It's a great time, and I love that like everyone there is so open to it, and I can like give that preface of like, hey, these things are a little different than what we experience here in our lives. Here's why.
Exactly. Exactly. But we're gonna go ahead, wrap this on up. This has been great, and I can't wait till next time. And we're gonna see y'all later.
Yeah.
Bye,
All right. Y'all have a
everybody.
good time. Bye.